Welcome to the newest edition of Bet. It is NFL Week 10. It feels like things are just flying by. I'm Erin Dolan, joined by the ever so great Eric Moody, who starts off every show by saying, what is your famous line, Eric?
I'm fully caffeinated and ready to go. And most importantly, we've got NFL football on right now. Yeah.
Yes, we do. And I'm getting crushed because I had said Seattle in the first half take the money line, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came out and actually are playing football, which is something it feels like we haven't seen much of this season. But we got a full slate today. We also got some NBA talk. We have some great guests that are going to be coming on and talking about some of these games. But let's first get to our market movers. We have to talk about this, guys. Look at how many lines have had huge shifts. We'll start off with Minnesota Buffalo. That line moved from -8.5 all the way down to -3.5, guys, at some point throughout the week, and it's now back up. Some of these totals also moving around as well. Houston, New York, that came up. Meanwhile, the line came down in favor of the Texans. And then you got Dallas, Green Bay. That line also moving down in favor of Green Bay. Total moving up slightly. Then you got the Colts, Vegas. That line moving down in favor of the Colts, who have a new interim head coach in Jeff Saturday. And the total also coming down. But let's talk about this Cowboys-Packers game. We're going to go live to Ed Werder and bring him in. Ed, thanks so much for joining Bet this morning. So Ezekiel Elliott has been limited in practice. He hasn't played since week 7. What's his status for this game?
Yeah, you know, as luck would have it, we're here early before kickoff, 6 hours. Mike McCarthy just came out to check Lambeau Field, the wind conditions and so forth. I had a moment to speak with him, and he told me that he does not expect that Ezekiel Elliott is going to make it for the game today. So it looks like that hyperextended right knee will keep him out 2 games in a row. First time in his career he's missed consecutive games because of injury. You know, this team has 3 games in the next 12 days starting today, and they've already invested in ensuring that Elliott returns fully healthy for the final stages of the regular season and then presumably the playoffs. The knee prevented him from playing against the Bears before the bye week. And with his absence, that would mean that Tony Pollard would start, be featured in the offense. You know, Elliott's gone 20 consecutive games without a 100-yard rushing performance. Pollard ran for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns as a starter against the Bears. Undrafted rookie Malik Davis played well as Pollard's backup. And the team yesterday elevated Kadri Allison for depth. So one more reason not to play Elliott with an unstable knee. The field is often very slippery here this time of the year. McCarthy knows that better than anyone, given his 13 years of experience. He's been harping on guys all week about wearing the right cleats to avoid slipping. And so maybe he actually gives them a practical advantage with his 13 years of Lambeau Field experience.
You know, great stuff, Ed. So the Packers have been a major disappointment this year. They're in the midst of a tight turnaround. So they play the Cowboys today. Then on Thursday, they have to play the Tennessee Titans. But there's also a familiar face in town in Mike McCarthy. So how could that impact the game today?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The Packers have 3 Super Bowl winning coaches in their history: Vince Lombardi, Mike Holmgren, and Mike McCarthy. And only one of them was fired. That was McCarthy. And later today, McCarthy coaches a regular season game here at Lambeau Field for the first time, 103rd time in his career, but the first from the visiting team sideline. McCarthy hasn't coached in the stadium since his Packers lost to the Cardinals late in the 2018 season, and Green Bay president Mark Murphy fired the Super Bowl winning coach before he went home that night. He hasn't been in the building since saying an emotional farewell to his Packers players, including Aaron Rodgers, a few days after his dismissal. And in his press conference on Monday, McCarthy described his abrupt, unexpected departure coming before the end of that season as leaving a dent with his family. When he and I sat down a few days later, he expressed regret for using that description. He said of his 13 years here, it was a hell of a run. We ran a good program. It was done the right way. That's why I don't like to talk about the dent, but I wish I hadn't said it. I was just giving an honest answer. And I can just tell you, the Cowboys players have now made this part of their purpose for winning this game. Dak Prescott framed it this way. Not a lot needs to be said. We know what our coach means to us. We know how long he was up here. We know how special going back is for him. They definitely want to win this game for their head coach today.
And it's going to be great to see him back on the field. So, Ed, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Looking forward to your coverage today.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, let's get into this game. Talk about the line. So the Packers are now a 3.5-point dog, so it's coming in favor of them at this point. Then you got that total right now, 44.5. How are you playing this game?
Yeah, there's three bets that I'm looking at in this game, Erin. First of all, I do like the Packers. I would bet on them, and I'm taking the points. And so they're at home. I know Ed mentioned about the weather where it's going to be cold. Field conditions could be an issue, and I think Mike McCarthy returning to Green Bay, I'm like, that's a big deal. And that should also motivate the Packers in this game. I know we talked about the motivation for the Cowboys, but you know Aaron Rodgers and the Packers want to win this game with their former head coach in Lambeau Field. Now, when you look at some of the betting trends, and I like the Packers in this game, they could outright win this game in my opinion, but the Cowboys are 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 games against Green Bay. Furthermore, if you look at the Packers, they're 11-5 against the spread in their last 16 home games against team with a winning record. And so I do like the under in this game. I'm like, all these different factors we've talked about, it kind of leads to this being a low-scoring game. Now, I know the Packers are only averaging 17 points per game this season. Offense has been in and out of sync. They've got multiple injuries that they're dealing with. Aaron Rodgers and his wide receivers. We got Romeo Doubs that's obviously going to be out. But this Packers offense is going to face a very stout Cowboys defense, one that ranks first in pass rush win rate, but they are susceptible to the run. So I do see the Packers leaning heavily on Aaron Jones and also A.J. Dillon in this game. And the under is 6-2-1 in the Cowboys' last 9 road games. Furthermore, the under is 7-3 in Green Bay's last 10 games. Again, I'm thinking a low-scoring game here. Last but not least, if you're looking at another bet, I like CeeDee Lamb as an anytime touchdown scorer. This is a receiver that's averaged 9 targets per game this season, and the Packers have given touchdowns away to number 1 receivers. Stephon Diggs scored 1, Terry McLaurin, Justin Jefferson scored 1 as well, but I actually believe he scored 2. So I think CeeDee Lamb is due in this game as well.
I like what you're putting down in terms of that under, because as we know, the Cowboys defense has been really good and the Packers offense hasn't put up many points. So I'm going to give a pick that I have not done yet this season, and I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys in the second half and lay the 1.5. If you look at this Packers squad, they're actually not good at covering the number in the second half of games. They're currently, 2-7 against the spread in the second half of games. Meanwhile, for the Dallas Cowboys, they're 6-2 against the spread. I don't really trust the Packers come the second half of games. There's just been moments when Aaron Rodgers needed to get things done, and he just did not. I think the Dallas Cowboys should win this game. I know going to Green Bay is going to be tough for them. There's a lot of different narratives surrounding this. I just feel that every single week I say, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, they're going to turn things around. And every single week, I am disappointed. So I'm going to look at that second half spread, find an area that the Dallas Cowboys are really good this season compared to the Green Bay Packers, and I'm going to lay the 1.5. Let's continue with some other games that are on the slate. Let's talk about the Colts and the Raiders. So this line has moved around a ton, but the Raiders are currently laying 4 points. That total is very low at 41. I feel like at this point in the season, we're seeing the totals just continue to drop because unders have been cashing like crazy. So in this game, Eric, do you have a side total or player prop that you have your eye on?
Yeah, in this game, I actually have my eyes, a spread bet, going with the Raiders here. I kind of feel weird saying that, but hey, here we are. I would say this is one game that the Raiders can win, cover the spread, and may not have to score a ton of points doing it, Aaron. And the Colts have gone through a lot of changes. I guess that's an understatement. Frank Reich has been fired, replaced by Jeff Saturday, former NFL player and our former colleague here at ESPN. And also, they brought in Matt Ryan this offseason. He's obviously been benched, so that's been big news. And I'd say my biggest concern about this Colts team is really their offensive line. They rank near the bottom of the league in pass block win rate and also run block win rate. Over the last 2 games, Sam Ehlinger has been sacked a ton. He's been sacked on 17.5% of his dropbacks, and so he's looked horrendous. And one thing about, I would say about the Raiders, a betting trend I'll close on, is that looking at this team, they are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 home games. So when I combine all these factors, I do want to back the Raiders today if you're betting. And I do want to give you a anytime touchdown score bet as well in Foster Moreau. There's no Darren Waller. There's no Hunter Renfrow. They're on injured reserve. And this Colts team has been victimized by opposing tight ends. They're actually in the bottom 10 in catch rate, yards per target, and also touchdown rate. So Moreau should see a ton of targets in this game, Aaron.
All right, I like it. And I feel like a lot of sharp bettors pounced on this game because obviously the Raiders opened -6.5. That line continued to move down. And it does feel like a lot of points to give the Raiders 6.5, despite only having basically 2 wins. They have not lived up to any type of expectation this season that we expected heading into the season. but I'm just not bought in on the Colts just yet. I agree with you. I would lay it with the Raiders here, but I'm going to slice this a little bit differently and take the Raiders in the first half -3. Now, the Indianapolis Colts, they are 0-9 against the spread in the first half of games. So some people like to play this, okay, this trend has been great, let me continue following it. And some people probably are thinking, well, at some point, they're going to be able to cover the first half spread. I'm not buying it. They're averaging 5 points in the first half of games, which is the lowest mark in the league. Meanwhile, for the Raiders, they're averaging 13 points in the first half of games. They've covered it in 4 of 8 games so far this season. I just think this is one of those spots for the Colts in which they start out slow, and meanwhile, for the Raiders, they start off hot, and then unfortunately, we've seen them drop 7 double-digit games 3 times already this season. So I don't trust the Raiders that much in the second half of games. I'd rather take them to cover the first half spread because, look, the Colts, they have a new interim head coach in Jeff Saturday, and I think he's going to do a great job, but he's not in the best position right now to suddenly make changes within less than 7 days, and suddenly this offense is going to completely change and somehow be one of the highest scoring teams in the first half of games. So again, Raiders -3 in the first half. Let's continue with some other games. We got Cleveland versus Miami. I expect Tua to have a big game. Right now, the Dolphins are laying 3.5 points, and that total is at 49.5. So maybe odds makers thinking some points will be scored. Eric, I know you have a plethora of picks for this game.
Yes, I do. There are a number of bets I do like in this game. First off, I do like Nick Chubb over rushing yards in this game. One thing about Chubb, he's averaged 18.6 rushing attempts and 105 rushing yards per game this season. And the Dolphins, when they're on defense, they usually have 7 or more defenders in the box. But this is not going to stop Nick Chubb. He has 22 rushing attempts of 10 or more yards against stacked boxes. The only player with more is Derrick Henry with 25. The Browns' offensive line, do like them in this matchup. They should be able to create some very large running lanes for their starting running back, Nick Chubb. Also like Tua in this game, like you mentioned, Aaron, over passing yards in this matchup. Now, if you take out the Bengals game where Tua was concussed, played limited snaps, he's averaging 311 passing yards per game this year. And the Browns are a middle-of-the-road secondary, in my opinion. And Tua's performed very well against man coverage so far this season. And that's important to consider because looking at the Browns, I'm sure they're aware of this. Tua's probably the top quarterback against man coverage in the league this year. So they're going to mix in some zone coverage in there, but I'm confident in Mike McDaniel and also Tua to have a contingency plan to offset that. Also like Tyreek Hill in this game. He's a receiver who's averaged 11 targets per game this year. He's got 7 or more receptions in 8 of 9 games this season. And I also like the Dolphins. If I'm looking at the Dolphins in this matchup against the spread, this offense has been phenomenal this season. Tua's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle, of course. But this is the Browns' defense that's giving up the 11th most rushing yards per game. Dolphins' offensive line, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, we're in a good spot here. And so when you look at the betting trend, the Browns are 16-34 against the spread in their last 52 games against a team with a winning record. I'm backing the Dolphins here.
All right, I like that. And now with Tua in his passing yards prop, that was one of the bets that I gave out on Daily Wager today. I also like him to hit over this mark. This line continued to come up all week. Look, I'm talking on Sunday morning. Sometimes it's really hard to be giving out bets because I feel like you're not getting some of the best numbers that you could have gotten. But Tua has been protected so far when he's been under center, which I think will help him, especially going against a guy like Myles Garrett. And then you got the Browns defense that on the road, they haven't faced a ton of explosive quarterbacks. I'm talking Mitchell Trubisky as well as Baker Mayfield. This is a totally different beast with Tua under center, and as we know, his arm is just absolutely explosive. He's got Jalen Waddle as well as Tyreek Hill, so I do think that he'll be able to hit over his passing prop. All right, let's quickly go to another game before we bring in one of our guests. We're going to go to Jacksonville versus Kansas City. The line right now is KC -9.5 and the total at 51. One of the plays that I like for this one is going to be Travis Kelce to score a touchdown. He has 7 touchdowns this season. He's leading all tight ends in this category in the league right now, but he hasn't scored a touchdown in 3 games. To me, that screams that Travis Kelce is due. As for the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, they're really good at stopping the run, but they're not good against the pass. What that means is Patrick Mahomes, the guy who can sling the ball. I mean, this guy is crushing numbers so far this season. He will find Travis Kelce in the end zone. So, Eric, I know this is one of the biggest spreads on the board. Have you found recently that you haven't been kind of attacking any of those games just because of the large spread?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I look at some of those numbers, and I'm just thinking the other team has to play well enough to kind of close the gap. So I have been taking the points in some of those scenarios.
All right, let's look at the Minnesota-Buffalo game because I've been talking about this one all week. Let's look at how this line has changed. Last Sunday, it opened 8.5, continued to move down, got as low as -3 yesterday. Now it's back up. Of course, the status of Josh Allen is going to be what everybody is talking about in this game. But honestly, are the Vikings as good as their record reflects? Let's bring in Kimberly Martin live to talk more on this game. And Kimberly, I know that Adam Schefter reported that Josh Allen will be active, but I'm wondering, how active considering he hasn't practiced all week?
Yeah, good morning. This is such a good game. I'm so glad I have it. Yeah, all signs indicate that Josh Allen will start today. The Bills have not made that official. But I can tell you from what I've been told, I expect Josh Allen to play today. And here's the thing. Him playing means that the team doesn't feel that it's putting him in any danger of aggravating the injury or making it worse. And that's a really important thing because after he got hurt last week against the Jets, head coach Sean McDermott said, we're going to be conservative. It's about the player safety first. We're going to make sure he's all right. So the fact that Josh Allen will suit up, we saw that Matt Barkley wasn't promoted to the 53. That was our first indication. And I even talked on Friday to their left tackle, Dion Dawkins, who said, I don't rule anything out until Sunday. So the fact that Josh Allen is going to play, it's been quite a week here in Orchard Park. And they're excited because Josh can do some special things on the field.
So, Kimberly, Dalvin Cook, he's facing a Bills defense that was #1 in rushing yards allowed, but has given up 191 yards in the last 2 games. So how steady of a diet will we see of Dalvin Cook today?
It's interesting because it's the Cook versus Cook brothers, right? Because the Bills have their own Cook, as Case Keenum called him. We've got Dalvin 2.0. I think Dalvin Cook is a guy, he is ultra competitive. Last week I covered the Vikings, and it was Kirk Cousins' return to Washington. And Dalvin had told me, I'm fired up. I want to make sure that Kirk plays well. I think Dalvin facing his younger brother, I think he'll be juiced up to play as well. But I think the Vikings, they want to always, start the run. You want to wear them down. And they've got Justin Jefferson. They've got Adam Thielen. They've got TJ Hawkinson. They have playmakers everywhere. But Dalvin Cook wants to be that engine. I think when you look at the Bills, they've had some injuries. Matt Milano, he's going to be back. He missed last week. I think that adds into the fact that they were one of the best rushing defenses, and now they're not. I think having Matt Milano back is good. But Leslie Frazier, their DC, talked about gap integrity. I think it's about fundamentals for this team. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. So hopefully if you're a Bills fan, today's the day that they figure out how to stop the run because Dalvin Cook is a dog.
Yes, he is. And Kimberly, like you said, this is one of the best games on the slate. I'm excited for you. Thank you for joining Bet, and I'm looking forward to your coverage today. Stay warm. All right, Eric, let's get into this game. We got Buffalo laying 6.5 points, and that total at 46.5. How you playing it?
There's so much uncertainty in this game, Aaron. You got Josh Allen for where he is going to play, but I just wonder, how effective or how many attempts will he get as a rusher? Because I'm like, with how many first downs that he rushes for and just rushing yards in general, he's a vital component of this Bills offense. And so you've got a little bit of uncertainty there. And who knows? We don't know how long he'll play. Case Keenum may see some snaps. So again, key word is uncertainty. But I look at this Vikings team, a team that I'm still shocked at 7-1 right now. They keep finding ways to win games. And so I do like the Vikings in this game. So I would take the underdog Vikings in the points. Kirk Cousins has a reputation of not performing in prime time. This isn't a primetime game. It's a 1 p.m. game. But, Cousins is 12-7 against the spread as a road underdog in those types of games. So I am backing the Vikings here.
I had to stay away from this game. I talked about this on SportsCenter. Erin on the side of caution. I talked about this on Daily Wager multiple times this week. There's no reason to play this game when there are a ton of other games on the board, a million player props that you could bet into. It is just too many question marks and uncertainty. Of course, I personally think the Bills will end up winning the game. But, of course, when we're talking about betting, it's by how many points. I don't trust either of these teams for the mere fact that the Minnesota Vikings are not as good as their record reflects at 7-1 if you really deep dive into their offensive numbers as well as their defensive numbers. But let's continue with our show here and get to Little Dog, Big Dog. And Eric, give me what you got today in terms of your dog.
Yeah, with the dog that I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers here. I just look at those points and I'm just like, that is just way too many points against the 49ers. And I do see the Chargers leaning heavily on the passing game in this matchup. They rank 4th in the league in passing yards per game. Even without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, they still have Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, Austin Eckler as well. I'm looking more so at the betting trends on the 49ers. You've got Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, he's only 17-9-1 against the spread when he's a favorite. Furthermore, you got Kyle Shanahan, who's 11-17 against the spread as a favorite when favored by more than 3.5 points. So I'm actually backing the Chargers here. I think they're going to deliver a close game or outright win.
All right, I'm throwing a dart here with the Cardinals +3 against the Rams. We still don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be for either of these teams, so this is automatically just a toss-up. But the one thing we know about the Rams is that they are terrible at covering the number. They're one of the worst in the league right now, 2-5-1 against the spread. The Cardinals haven't been good this season. The Rams haven't been good, so why not just take the points with the Cardinals? So I know this is a little bit of shot in the dark here, but we're going to go with the Cardinals +3 as my dog. But Eric, hang tight. We're going to bring you back in just a little bit because we have to head to Vegas and bring in Tyler Fulghum, who, by the way, guys, was absolutely spectacular on this show last week. The man was 5-0, so make sure that you continue to tune in and hear what he has to say because he was obviously crushing it. Look at that. Win, 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 win. I wish we had some cashing, sound effects right now. Maybe we can do that in the future if you're able to sustain this 5-0 and keep going perfect on these Sundays here. But let's go, Tyler Fulghum. Let's talk about the first game on the slate we wanted to mention, Cardinals versus Rams. Rams laying 3, that total at 30, and that total moved tremendously. It was 43.5. So what do you think for this game?
Yeah, it's kind of a flying in the dark right now, or flying blind, because we don't yet know, especially since this game is in the afternoon window. Is Matt Stafford going to play? Is Kyler Murray going to play? Are these head coaches going to their backups? It sounds like we are going to get John Wolford versus Colt McCoy. So that's my handicapping right now. And the reason I say that is because the total dipped so much under 40. It seems like the market is expecting the backup quarterbacks. I like this spot for the Rams. John Wolford has played an NFL game before. As a matter of fact, Week 17 of the 2020 season, Jared Goff had an injured thumb. The Rams needed a win in Week 17 against the Arizona Cardinals at SoFi Stadium to qualify for the postseason. Insert John Wolford. He throws for 230 yards and runs for 56 against Chris Streveler, the backup at that time, in Arizona. So I think we see similar type of production from Wolford, who's far more athletic than Matthew Stafford, which will be a benefit for the Rams offensive line because they can't pass block anyone. So Wolford will, be able to extend some plays and create some plays with his legs. I like the Rams to win and cover in a low-scoring game at SoFi this afternoon.
Yes, and that total is at 39 out of 30. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. That would be an insane total. But anyways, let's continue here with the Browns-Dolphins. The Dolphins are laying 3.5 points. The total is one of the highest on the board at 49.5. Side total player prop, what you got for us?
Yeah, this one I expect it to be a pretty good game. You have Cleveland on their side with Nick Chubb and his explosive play ability. You have, of course, on Miami side, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa against a Cleveland defense that hasn't been that great. I think I'm going to attack the total here and play it to go over that total. Just thinking that these defenses are not that great, thinking that the offenses can make some explosive plays happen, and thinking that even though it's high at 49.5, part of me wants to go under, but I think Tyreek, Waddle, Nick Chubb make this one go over 49.5.
All right, and the other game that everyone's been talking about is Minnesota versus the Bills. Bills laying 6.5. That total now 46.5. This is just one of the hardest ones to handicap, I believe. But what do you like in this game?
Yeah, I was talking about that quarterback uncertainty with Cardinals and Rams. Well, I thought Allen wasn't going to play. Now it looks like he is playing. Regardless of who's at quarterback, and again, it looks like it'll be Josh Allen, I like the Bills, and I like this game to go under. We're focusing so much on who's going to play quarterback for the Bills. I don't care. What I do care about is Kirk Cousins having to go on the road to Buffalo, hostile road environment, against one of the best defenses in all of the National Football League. That, to me, is the handicapping that I'm going to focus on. I know the Vikings are 7-1, but, Aaron, we don't really believe they're as good as that record indicates. They've played against nothing but backups all season long. Well, regardless of his health, Josh Allen is not a backup. He's an MVP favorite, and I think we will see him give a relatively normal Josh Allen performance. Even if he's not throwing the ball that well, we know he has his legs that are as dangerous as any quarterback in the NFL. So I think the Bills win this game, but I think it's a low-scoring game because their offense may be capped by Allen's injury, and I just don't see Kirk Cousins going into Buffalo against Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier's defense and hanging a big number on the Bills.
I agree. The Bills' defense is going to be the toughest thing to get by for this Viking squad, and I, like you, do not believe that they are as good as their record reflects at 7-1. All right, all good stuff there, Tyler. Let's bring back Eric Moody to do our segment, Take It to the Bank. We got to take a look also at last week's results. As you guys know, Tyler was absolutely killing it, and Eric and I just, things were not going our way last week. But that does not mean that things will not go our way this week. So, Tyler, let's start off with you since you've been so good, or were so good last week, and give me your Take It to the Bank.
Yeah, I'm going to come here right in my backyard, Las Vegas. The Raiders are taking on the Colts, and we know the situation with the Colts. That Jeff Saturday is the new interim head coach. Sam Ellinger, it looks like, is still going to be the quarterback, although Matt Ryan may have an opportunity to win that job back now with new head coach and new leadership. But the bottom line is this: the Colts are a mess. It's like they are tanking, like they don't want to win. That seems to be what Jim Irsay is indicating with these decisions. So I know the Raiders have been hard to trust, but they've lost some big leads, like last week. That shows me they at least can build big leads. Now they got to close it out. I think they can do it against the Colts. Big day for Devontae Adams, big day for Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr, hopefully, and the Raiders cover the 4 against this Indy team.
Yeah, I agree with you that the Colts are just tanking at this point, so it's going to be interesting to see how Jeff Saturday does today. But Eric, let's continue with you. Give me your Take It to the Bank.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney over receiving yards. I guess I'm like a moth to the flame, drawn to another wide receiver prop after Amon-Ra St. Brown let me down last week. But you look at Mooney, he's been great with Justin Fields under center with his breakout. Since week 4, Mooney's averaged 63.3 receiving yards per game, getting a lot of targets. I expect him to have a monster game against Detroit's secondary. So I expect him to feast like a king watching a performance at medieval times. That's how dominant it will be.
I also have a Take It to the Bank in that same game. I'm going Justin Fields over 62.5 rushing yards. This number has continued to climb, but he's hit over this mark in 4 straight games. He's averaging 69 rushing yards per game. He took off for 178 rushing yards last week against the Miami Dolphins, which was the most rushing yards in a regular season game ever. So this guy has just been crushing it on the ground. Now he faces the Detroit Lions defense that's currently giving up the most points per game to opponents. They're also ranked 31st against the run. They've allowed 225 rushing yards to opponents, which is tied 28th first in the league right now. So I just think Justin Fields will continue to take off and hit over his rushing yards prop. Now, we've all given you our Take It to the Bank pick, but before we let you go, Tyler, we just want to quickly ask if you have an NBA play that you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I'm going to turn to the Bulls and the Nuggets. Going to play that total over 229.5. You have the Nuggets on one side, one of the best offenses in the NBA, obviously, with Nikola Jokic as the fulcrum, but they got snipers. They got shooters. This team shoots better than 40% from downtown. Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, KCP's been a nice addition. On the other side, you got the Bulls going against a Nuggets defense that is not that good, despite what they do on offense. They're not a very sound defensive team right now. And then you have DeMar DeRozan, you have Nikola Vucevic, you have those guards that I think can keep this a close game. That's what the spread indicates, and could be a potential for overtime. Regardless, I do think we go over the total with 2 teams having an easy day offensively.
All right. I like it, Tyler. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you need to get some sleep out there in Vegas. It's been an early morning for you, so thanks for joining Bet Today.
All right, guys, best of luck with your bets today.
Thank you very much. All right, Eric, I know you got to play in this same game, so give it to the people.
Yes, I do. I really like Zach LaVine in this game to go over points. The line's set at 22.5. One thing about LaVine, he's averaged 22 points in 34 minutes per game this season, and he should be able to torch this Nuggets defense. I know Tyler kind of alluded to that. They've allowed opponents to shoot 48.8% from the field, so I love Zach LaVine in this game.
All right, I'm liking that. So I'm going to also make a pick in this game. We're going to go Bulls third quarter plus 1.5 We're going to continue to ride these trends until they just stop. They're 12-1 against the spread in the third quarter. They make great adjustments at halftime, clearly. I think this will be a tight, close game. So I'm just going to go with the Bulls here. Another player prop that I'm looking at on the board today is the Golden State Warriors versus the Sacramento Kings. We got to look at Steph Curry and go over 30.5 points. This guy has been crushing it. He's averaging 37 points this month. On top of that, he just dropped 47 points on the Kings not too long ago. And the Kings defense is just not good, ranked 26 in defensive rating. So I do think that Steph Curry has a big game. So those are two NBA plays that I like for today. And guys, this was a great edition of Bet. I feel like we are going to give you guys some winners this week. Eric, thanks so much, obviously, for doing this with me. And thanks to all our guests here that joined Bet. And we'll be back here tomorrow for Monday Night Football. Tune in then.